All right. Thank you so much for having us today. Um, can I get someone to confirm that you can see my slides here?
Yeah, we can see them.
All right. Wonderful. All right. So for today, we're going to talk about precipitation fuels update related to fire weather, head into a seasonal outlook, and then review some of our products, services, red flag warnings, and some of our decision support. All right. Here's some contact information. For y'all to reach out to. If you're not already on our 1 p.m. fire call, fire notes list, you can email Dave Gomberg at david.gomberg@NOAA or Todd Hall at todd.hall@noaa.gov to be added to those lists. And those are a tremendous resource for our weather updates, where we really focus on like the next 7 days or so, but highlight critical fire weather conditions when thunderstorms are in the area, large heat waves, and as we head into the wet season, um, flood and debris flow concerns, and so forth. Also, highly recommend our Fire One page and the Snooper, also listed there on the right hand side. Great resources on the fire weather front. So, for our precipitation fuels update, um, this past winter, we did have above normal precipitation, although it didn't feel like it at times because we had long dry stretches in between our wet periods. Related to our fuel conditions is also well above normal temperatures, largely because of those large breaks in action. And so that's leading us towards um, still pretty good conditions on the drought side. But as we head towards the fuel side of things, that red line indicates where we are as of 2026, so far this year, whereas the black line on this graph shows where we normally are for percent live fuel moisture. And as you can see, the red line is below the black line as of early June. And so we're actually drier than normal for our fine for our some of our smaller live fuel moistures. And so again, approaching that critical 80% or so is where we start getting very concerned, and we're already near that. Fuels are quite dry and drier than what we would normally see this time of year. And that's related to the fact we had those long breaks in precipitation, but also the above normal temperatures help to accelerate that drying across the region. So for the fire season outlook from the GAC, you can see above normal large fire potential for June, and that's compared to normal. So, we're still on the early side of the front side of the fire season, closer to the coast, but that large above normal potential is still there. And then looking for July through September, we're looking at near normal large fire potential. Some of the key points from their latest update as of May 29th is above normal temperatures, especially inland of the marine layer, which is expected to be more shallow with less inland penetration than normal. So less potential for marine layer to shelter areas closer to the coast as we head into that July through September timeframe. And we are looking at potential for enhanced monsoon tropical remnant moisture later this summer. And that window is usually in that July through September timeframe. So that'll be something we're keeping an eye on. In terms of outlooks, for the month of July, we are looking at odds uh, leaning towards above normal temperatures for the month of July, which will just accelerate some of that drying across the area. And you'll notice a little bit of a monsoon look here with the monthly precipitation outlook, where maybe not quite into our area, but you can see just east of us that above normal precipitation or rainfall is slightly favored. And so that's closer to us than we would normally see. So that does indicate that potential for the monsoon to nudge into our area at times. as we might even see in the coming days. Tuesday or Wednesday, there's an outside chance of an isolated thunderstorm across our area. So we could be looking at an earlier and more active monsoon season than we sometimes see. And then we'll talk about a little bit as to why we're seeing this, but it does look like we'll see slightly favoring above normal temperatures into the late summer, early fall, August through October. And again, this signal here for above normal temperatures in Southern California on the West Coast there, slightly leaning towards above normal precipitation. And again, that's largely due to that maybe enhanced monsoon and or potential for tropical remnants across the area. So even though that's typically a pretty dry period, we could see a little more activity than we normally see for this time of year. And then heading further into the first part of winter, with the likely strong El Nino, which we'll talk about here in a second, it does favor continued above normal temperatures and at least near normal precipitation, near to maybe above normal for our area. And so getting back to El Nino, we are already in the El Nino, which is we sometimes see them develop in the summer. We already have a El Nino in place, and then it's looking more and more likely that we're going to be heading into a strong or very strong El Nino. In fact, there's a 63% chance that we get into that very strong category of 2 degrees Celsius or greater anomaly, which would be similar to what we saw. I believe the last time we saw that was back in 2015. Let's see here. And just as a reference, this is the area we look to for El Nino. It's the central equatorial Pacific. And that's the area that really warms up and could help to supercharge our winter storms come winter, the storms that we do see. So it is a potential for above normal precipitation that we often see, but there's also it's not a slam dunk by any means. In fact, 2015, we actually saw possibly a similarly strong El Nino lead to below normal precipitation because the storm track was targeting more Northern California. So again, not a slam dunk, but that in general, we do experience above normal precipitation for stronger El Ninos. Okay, continuing on, here's some of our fire weather products and services that we provide to help you all plan resource levels, strategically place equipment and fire personnel for rapid initial attack. And we also have IMETs, including I believe we're up to 3 IMETs at our local office. I know we have Rich Thompson for a long time, and then we have a couple either fully trained or very close to it in Rose and Kristen. And so we have very good local resources in terms of IMETs. And then we also provide other ways of other types of on-site support as well as needed. So if you have a need to have a meteorologist, please just reach out and we can try to work something out. Okay, so some of our fire weather products and services. A reminder, we have our fire weather planning forecasts issued twice per day in the high fire season, and that provides zone-based forecasts for the next couple days or so, as well as an overall discussion on highlighting the main fire weather concerns in that window and a little bit beyond. We have the trends forecasts, which is a 7-day point forecast that includes the burn index for raw stations. So tries to build in that station climatology. And then we provide spot forecasts that you can request through our website, and always feel free to reach out, give us a call if you have questions, concerns on how to do that. Some other products that we provide are, of course, the red flag warnings and fire weather watches that are issued from 24 hours to 72 hours or longer out in advance, depending on our confidence level. One of our key services that we provide for is the 1 p.m. fire weather conference calls. And so we provide local interactive conference calls for fire and emergency management partners, where we detail the fire weather forecasts, warning impacts, confidence, timing. And then we provide the opportunity for fire agencies to share fuel, fire behavior information. And then we do a roll call to get people's questions or concerns about how we're handling a certain fire weather situation. And then we share notes following the call. And so whatever is discussed on the call, we send notes for your own documentation. And we kind of do those calls as the weather kind of supports it. So when there's more critical conditions out there, we'll highlight those 1 p.m. fire calls, and we'll usually send out those notifications by about 10 a.m. or so. And you know, even though we're heavy on the fire weather side, we sometimes do this for other high impact weather like heavy rain or strong wind events that maybe don't have a huge fire weather aspect. Let's see here. So we use the same criteria for our fire weather watches and red flag warnings. You know, we must have sufficiently dry fuels, but not necessarily critical in order to host those products. And that's where our collaboration with the fire community is so important, to make sure we are at a place where we feel that large, rapid fire spreading fire is a concern. And it's not a predictor of fires. So, you know, we're looking at the combination of fire weather conditions and fuels, but there's other aspects that come into play. And the big difference between a watch and a warning is the watch is just lower confidence, usually further out in time, whereas a red flag warnings where we have that higher 80% or more confidence of reaching red flag warning criteria. And at the bottom here just kind of highlights what I just shared, where red flag warnings generally within about 48 hours and the watches further out in time typically. So we have a few different criteria that we bring to the table here. The first one is kind of more standard with 15% or lower humidity with sustained winds at 25 or gusts 35. And then we have a second criteria that's drier, but not necessarily have to be quite as windy. And when we're looking at red flag conditions, sometimes within the same event, we'll actually go between the two criteria. Maybe it starts out very dry and a little windy, and we hit criteria for an area. And then the humidity start increasing a little bit, but then the winds increase too. So there can be situations where we lean into both of these simultaneously. Other scenarios of concern would be dry lightning fire starts. And then we also look at, there's some scenarios that might not fit neatly in these categories, and we would look to work with the fire weather community to see a combination of weather elements and fuels would maybe support a fire weather watch or red flag warning, such as with the Bobcat and bridge fires. I recall the bridge fire in particular was a combination of very hot, unstable conditions with some wind. And so it didn't neatly fit into any one of these, but obviously led to a large and destructive fire. Okay, so within the red flag warning, we will sometimes highlight a particularly dangerous situation, or PDS. It's not a new product. We use it, the red flag criteria we use is unchanged. And for the PDS, we would issue that within a red flag warning, duration and or spatially. So it might not be for the entire red flag warning. And even for the red flag warning, it might only be a specific area. So it might only be a 3 or 6 hour window for a portion of the red flag warning. Other California offices may also use that PDS language. And here's the Santa Ana criteria that we've developed, where we have sustained winds of 35 or greater, gusts to 60 miles per hour or greater, humidity is 10% or less, and then of course the fuel component there. And part of the reason for the PDS is not only the very dangerous rapid fire spread, which obviously is a huge component, but also the added elements of more concerned with down trees and power lines and other elements that could play into how we react to these situations. So for some decision support, we are really trying to lean into the importance of direct communication with you all and our other partners. So we'll do special conference calls. We have, you feel free to sign up to our Slack or messaging app, which you can reach us very easily to ask questions. You can see our products issued. And sometimes we'll provide forecast updates or confidence or something like that within those channels. So if you're not signed up for Slack, there'll be an upcoming slide on that. We provide live webinars when there's very big weather events. For those of you that are signed up to our email briefings, we'll do those kind of as the weather provides that opportunity. Of course, we lean into direct phone calls with some of our partners, and feel free to call us at any time, again, to ask questions or if you need a briefing yourself. And then, like I was mentioning, we are leaning into providing on-site support. You see our meteorologist in charge, Ariel Cohen, on that left-hand image, writing a briefing at the LA County EOC. Just one example of that. So here's just an example of our weather email. It looks a little different than this now, but the general elements are there with key points, a hazard matrix, and then some details below. And if you're not already on this, again, you can email todd.hall@noaa.gov to be placed on the notification list for these emails, webinars, the fire weather call that we discussed earlier. And so forth. And again, here's that slide I was mentioning that you can sign up for Slack. I won't read everything here, but it's really just a great opportunity to communicate daily. And again, you can have it set up where you get notifications when our products are issued. So it's a really great way to stay in touch also with our hazards. Okay. Yeah, there's some details there below. Reach out if you have any questions. So yeah, as we're continuing to lean into this NWS Connect, and so that's the link there should give you what you need. But again, if you have questions, call our fire weather number listed there below and ask for John or Rose. They're our main Slack people to get you all set up. Okay, I think that's all we have for you. Are there any questions from anybody?
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Have a chance to stand here. Okay, you get all the questions. So my name's Dave Stone with Cal OES Fire. Been with OES for 11 years. 8 full-time, I went part-time 3 years ago. And I just do projects and pick up any extra stuff. The guy that took my spot, Greg McEwen, he went to be the fire chief of West Covina back in April. So they asked if I could step up and kind of cover for him until we fill the spot. Hopefully we'll have it filled by August 1st, hopefully. We'll get that person on board. I have no clue who filed for the job or not. The filing closed a couple weeks ago. So, and then prior to that, I had 32 years with LA County Fire, retired as assistant fire chief there. So I've had a fun career, had a lot of fun. It's interesting, I bumped into one of your firefighters here from Glendale. He worked in the camps when I was running the camp program, so I didn't recognize him. He's 25 years older, so of course I am too. But so the CFA agreement, you guys have all heard of that, California Fire Assistance Agreement. It's a agreement signed between the federal government, CAL FIRE, and Cal OES. And all it's designed for is a way for the federal government and state to access local government resources. So when your strike team goes out overhead, you're assigned to federal or state management team. That's all through that CFA agreement. And it's every 3 years, it's negotiated, updated. Right now, we're in the 4th year of the 3-year contract. They can extend it while they try to hash things out. The big issue right now is the reimbursement for apparatus. We use the FEMA equipment rates, and FEMA came out last year with new equipment rates, and the rates were actually lower than what they were previously. And so there's a lot of not happy young local government people, of course. And so there's going through some of the trying to get the FEMA rates for engines, water tenders, dozers, the main equipment we use, try to get the rates back to where they were. We'll see how that goes. On a side note, the weather, there's all kinds of tools, obviously, you can, and I didn't realize when I got in the fire service, I'd worry about the weather so much, but we have weather reports every day. You can get a webinar, they will send you push out messages to you, push out weather reports. So I get all that every day. And you got the issue for us, we're in the Oxnard area, so it's not too bad. It's Ventura and LA County, so it works out. But if you are looking at weather in Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange County, that's out of the San Diego weather office. So sometimes, and that's the only issue I have, is I gotta watch one webinar and then watch another webinar, because the way our region is split up, LA and Orange County is in the same southern part of the region. So it just, that's more of a business issue more than anything else. So, work. Yeah, that's how it. Yep. It's when you got to call one of the engineers to come and fix it. I was hung up with the engineers because they only knew how to use the TV set. Am I right? I mean, get more time. At the end of this program, there's a QR code, and on that code, you flash it. It's going to give you a lot of information, copy of agreements, a mobilization guide, job aids that we put together that we'll talk about in a presentation. And so it's nice to have. They're all PDF, so you can load it right into your smart device. Are we okay? Let me see. That doesn't look good. That looks like an IT phone call.
Right? Stop sharing. All right, let's try it.
We got somewhere. We're good
Just
there.
gonna share the window.
Oh, all right. Working right now. Don't touch anything.
I'm not touching, I'm not gonna move.
One other thing, real quick, a couple of things. I used to teach college classes, taught fire academy for a long time. And one of the things that I really quickly try to, because you guys didn't grow up in the era of film strips and all that. That's a while ago. And so when we first started teaching, it was overhead transparency. You guys probably remember some of those, the older teachers. So PowerPoint was like manna from heaven for all of us, because you can put all your slides in here, all kinds of things. The problem you get into is that old death from PowerPoint, where it sounds like that Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and the guy's kind of Bueller, everybody's kind of like. So two things I assume about all of you guys is, the first one is you can all read. That's good assumption. Some better than others. and that y'all have some level of intelligence. You passed an exam once, at least one. And what I mean by that is I didn't develop this program. This was our admin people up in Sacramento. And this is like about a 2.5 hour program. I cut it down to about 45 minutes. So I hope you don't mind that. I just went through and kind of did some cutting. And some of these slides are really wordy, and I don't like to read if I don't have to, so I'll talk. And my teaching style is, it's like we're on a hike and we're walking a trail and there's switchbacks, and we'll walk off the trail, look at something, come back on the trail. We'll get to the destination, but it may not be a straight line. So what I mean by that is I start talking, I'll pick up a thread and I'll go off in some direction, and I'll come back. And if we talked about that already, and I see the slide, I hope if you, with your permission, I'll just flash through, I'll just skip the slide we talked about. It's something where the slide program doesn't always, it's not exactly clean. So now, so when we write the evaluation, you can beat me up on there. Okay, so real quick, we're going to talk about resource orders. We're going to talk about some CICCS. Really need to have your qualification. What I did is I just took a picture of it. My red card's on my phone. It's kind of hit or miss whether or not when you check in an incident, whether or not they ask you for your red card. It's generally speaking, you show up with 5 engines, you're a strike team leader, you got a trainee. More than likely check-in isn't going to ask you, but once in a while you get somebody ask you, you know, are you qualified for your job out here? But let's see your qualification card. So I just put it on my phone. That way, if somebody's interested, I have it there. It's just easier because you've driven 6 hours and you're checking in and they want your qual card. You're thinking, I left it back at home or whatever. I don't think they're going to send a strike team all the way back home for you can get your card and come back. So it's a good idea to have it though. So on the resource order, you guys are familiar with this? I have to go through every box. Okay. So on the resource order, there's a couple things you need to be aware of. This upper right-hand corner, it says financial codes, and there's a whole list of stuff. When the dispatch at the incident creates the IROC order, let's say strike team, in this case, strike team order, they will create the incident first, and then they start creating the orders in the system. So when they create the incident, there's a drop-down menu of all the codes that could be used for that incident. And so what they'll go through, and they'll drop down, and they'll pick codes that are for that incident. It could be a assistance by hire code, could be a CAL FIRE code, Fed code. There'll be CFAA for us. There may be different codes. That upper corner usually will be blank. It might list the codes like that, or it might have one code in the box. Don't get drawn to that, because that may not be what you're assigned. It's this one down here, box 12. That's box 12. It'll say right here, financial code, CFAA, California Fire Assistance Agreement. And then under the special needs, this is where they'll put all the information on. It says CFA approved it there again, but this is where they'll put laptop, cell phone, rental car approved. If it's pre-approved for rest overnight, RON, they'll put it in there, RON approved for travel. So that's where you're looking for all the boxes. Be careful, because if it's not on there, what's going to happen is this request comes to us first, unless it's local. Like if Area C, if Verdugo creates the incident, creates the request, it's internal to here, and then they're going to push out orders within Region 1. If it goes beyond Region 1, then it comes to OES. If it starts in Region, let's say 2, which is Northern California, it'll come to us before it comes to you. So there's a few people that touch this request before you see it. The idea being is that when it comes to OES, we're supposed to actually look at the request, make sure it's correct before we push it to Region 1. LA County is Region 1 coordinator. They'll get it. and they'll say, okay, we're gonna push that over to area C. So they push it over to Verdugo dispatch. That dispatcher is supposed to look at it, make sure it's correct, and then they'll push it over to whoever the strike team leader is at the station. Usually they'll push it to you and they say, hey, we got an order, we got a strike team, we're mobilizing to go to Northern California. And then so strike team leader is gonna look at it. And so a bunch of people are looking at it. Unfortunately, sometimes there's a lot of orders flying around and it gets missed. So if you look at the order and it's not correct, call dispatch, let them know, hey, it doesn't say CFA, we need to make sure it's CFA approved. But don't hold up going on your strike team because of that. Mobilize, do your safety tailboard thing, get on the road. We can fix this all the way till you check in at the incident. So while you're traveling, you can have your dispatch talking to their dispatch, making sure they'll talk to the OES person, we'll look at it. Once you check in, we can't fix this, but what they can do is OES person, we're your agency rep at the incident. We'll actually go to the dispatch center at the incident and sit with them. We get a list of all the resources assigned local government, and we'll go through that with them and we'll fix everything that's not correct. There's a second page to this. It's a notes page, and you'll see if it's not here, you'll see it in a note. It'll say CFA approved. It might say rental vehicle approved. It might say rest overnight approved, things like that. So just because it's not here, look at page 2. It might be on page 2. When we send strike teams out, the CFA approves the strike team leader and one trainee. One trainee doesn't approve a second vehicle, though. I know sometimes that just happens. You guys get a strike team assignment. They're trying to find a trainee. There's nobody on duty that can cover it. So they call somebody at home that's a trainee, get them into work. Might not even be from the same agency. It might be a Pasadena trainee and a Glendale trainer or stand. And so they may not be together when the strike team goes out. So the guy grabs a vehicle, drives up to the incident, meets the strike team at the incident. The vehicle, unfortunately, is not approved. So you just park it in the base and leave it. The reason I would say park it and leave it is because if you use the vehicle to do stuff with, like you want to use it to go get water, lunches, like a chase vehicle type thing, if it gets into an accident or damaged, the incident's not going to cover it because it's not approved for the incident. So you have to be real careful for that. During COVID, we did approve a second vehicle. We did approve more than one trainee. Sometimes we approve a second trainee, especially if we relied on trained strike team leaders. But we're back to post-COVID, one vehicle, second vehicle's not approved, one trainee. If you have to, you may have to look. I think last year we had Long Beach sent a strike team out, but they didn't have any strike team leaders that were approved at the time. And so LA County sent a strike team leader to be the strike team leader of that strike team, with the trainee being from Long Beach. So we'll work it out. Might feel a little weird. Okay, so agreements. See, I know, is it Glendale, you have an agreement with the forest, right? Glendale does. Burbank, I think you have. No, Pasadena has an agreement with forest. Burbank does not, I don't think. You do have one now? Because you did before. You guys are looking at me like you're
We run that through.
okay, so you're good then. Okay, you show your agreement. That include engine, water tender if you have it, all that, or just the crew? Just the crew, okay. So what I'm getting at is know the agreement you're under when you go out. And so different agencies have different agreements, might be side agreements, like the forest. If you touch the forest, they'll allow you to have agreement. So Monrovia has an agreement, Arcadia, Pasadena, LA County has an agreement, Glendale. So if you touch a forest, it used to be that forest didn't do that. They just went looking for cheap labor. And so they would actually, I remember La Habra Heights Volunteers had a type 3, and the forest contracted with them to come all the way up to force if they needed a type 3. And then they had some issues with that, so they said, okay, we're not doing it anymore. Not that Harbor Heights had the issues, they just had issues with going around, actually cherry picking the cheaper departments, and not necessarily the closer department. So politically, it didn't look good, so they said, okay, we're not doing that. Now, if you touch the forest border, we'll have an agreement with you. So Master Mutual Aid, this is always a confusing one. We got this fire, it was a little small fire in LA City right now. And it's very confusing as far as remember, Master Mutual Aid is free forever. It's not 12 hours and then we get paid. It's free forever. It's neighbor helping neighbor. It started from the Civil Defense Act of 1950. You guys were around for that, I'm sure. No, I wasn't either. But Civil Defense Act of 1950, every city, county, and state of California signed on that they would help each other out no matter what. If it was a localized emergency, that's where you got your automatic aid agreements from and all that. But Master Mutual Aid is free forever. But it has some limitations. It's like your neighbor comes over, borrows your mower, and then hangs on to it for a year. You know, that's not going to work. Now, if the neighbor borrows a mower for a week and brings it back, that's different. Okay, I'm good with that. And then the neighbor comes over to borrow the mower, and you, oh yeah, you're a good neighbor. I'll let you use it again. And but if you hang on to it too long, and then the next time they go to ask, what happens? A little reluctant to say, I'm your neighbor, I want to help you out, kind of thing. Or if you're not getting reciprocated, sometimes it strains the relationship. So there's reasonable time periods. And that's where OES, a lot of times we'll come out to the incident, we'll talk to the IC, find out, well, how long do you plan on using these resources? Because, you know, they're free, you're enjoying that, but they have their own jurisdiction, they have people expect them, they're backfilling with overtime. That doesn't look good. So we try to get it to where, okay, you're going to use the resource, but what's the time frame? LA City, this little fire they got going, they're going to be, they're already doing it. They're getting resources to help them out. And so technically it's Master Mutual Aid until the responsible party pays, because the responsible party is going to pay for it. And so that takes time. So we bring in units from outside the area to help, some big stuff. And the state, we're actually reimburse them up front. And then we'll be part of LA City going after the reimbursement. So the state of California will be made whole after it gets all settled. And we're going to actually front the money to local government that's helping LA City. CFA, that's what the main thing we're talking about today. And that was the 12 hours are free. And then once you hit the hour 13, goes back to the whole thing's reimbursed. Be careful. You'll get agencies. It's getting better, but you'll get agencies that'll request you under CFAA, and they'll use you for about 10 hours. And then what are they going to do? Hey, we don't need you anymore. Thanks for help. And you just got 10 hours of free service. But one of the things we have to think about is, as a strike team leader, as let's say you're the duty chief, what's the one thing that always comes into play when we're working on an incident? What do we have to think about? Work rest cycle, right? 2 hours of work, 1 hour rest. So if you got your strike team or your engines on somebody else's fire for 10 hours, how many hours of downtime are you supposed to give them? 5. That's 15 hours. That means they're paying. That's what one of the questions you want to ask. How long are you planning on using this for? Because a lot of times they try to get rid of everybody real quick because they don't want to have to pay for it. It also wears out your welcome. Force agreement we talked about. This FC 33, that is state of California, CAL FIRE, with their CAL FIRE units, which are contract counties. There's 6 contract counties in the state: LA, Orange, Kern, Ventura, Santa Barbara, and Marin. Those counties, all that means is when the state was being formed and fire protection was being put together in the state of California, the whole state except for the main cities like San Francisco, LA, the ones that were around in the mid 1800s, because the state became a state when? 1849, come on, remember? Gold rush. California became a state real quick because there's also some money. So when CAL FIRE started putting protection for the wildland watershed, they had the whole state. Well, as counties became counties, they had the opportunity to become their own county, not use CAL FIRE. And so the state of California passed legislation giving those 6 counties the ability to do their own fire protection for state land and watershed. So LA County actually was the forester and fire warden. The fire chief was actually called a fire warden at the time. It's all morphed now, but so CAL FIRE will utilize those resources as a CAL FIRE unit, and they'll reimburse them using a different form. And it says CFMA in the finance code, not CFAA. And so sometimes you may see a strike team coming through, maybe an Orange County strike team's coming through, and you think, where are they going? Well, they may be hired as a CAL FIRE unit strike team going north to someplace. So it just depends on how people order. And that just reemphasizes the boxes. I don't know why they put that twice. The CFA agreement is these agencies. What's interesting now with the new administration coming in a year and a half, 2 years ago, these 4 agencies, Fish and Wildlife, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, now those 4 are merged together as one, and it's the National Wildfire Service, I think is what they're called now. Chief Fennessy, who was the Orange County Fire Authority chief, he was tapped by the administration to put this whole thing together. So Forest Service is still their own agency right now. They'll probably join that later, but it was easy for those other 4. The idea being is those 4 agencies have the same mission, they just have different dirt. So no different than if you had 4 fire departments and you just joined them and be one fire department. That's all we're doing here. They all have the same mission, they just have different responsibilities. So you'll see change there. They were going to add the Department of Defense. That's still being debated, because right now the CFA agreement doesn't include military fire departments. It does include the Native American fire department or tribes. For our purposes, just like I said at the beginning, state, federal, this is you. They want you. We're the agency that makes that happen for you. The governor of the state, way back when, created Office of Emergency Services. Our main focus was to help coordinate a fire rescue law, emergency management within the state of California. And so this is all that talks about, is that if we just our signature for you. There's about 1,100 fire departments in the state of California. And so you imagine 1,100 departments trying to come to an agreement and sign a document. So OES, there's a committee that OES is on with, I think there's 5 different fire departments. There's state level, county, feds, and then there's city departments. I think there's a district. There's a different, it covers the different areas, the labor group, and they are the ones that do the CFA update every 3 years or more. All this talks about this. Does anybody do remote assignments on fires? Be like an IT person, mapper? Because what they did with COVID, a lot of stuff went remote. And so there was some debate, because if you have, let's say you're the mapper and you're sitting at home, they were charging portal to portal for being at home, not being at the incident. And so we all know that anybody, if you've worked out of the house before, you know that 100% of your time's not devoted to doing your job. No offense, but you know, some of your time might be spent doing some yard work, maybe clean the house, maybe take the kids to soccer, you know, but I'm still remote. I'm still working. And so what they decided was, if you're a remote worker, you only get paid for hours worked. You don't get paid portal to portal. So that was a big change. Rental cars, I think everybody hears the rental car things, no big deals now. Enterprise is the state agency that we use for rental car. And like I mentioned earlier, it should be on your request form. The two things I can tell you about rental cars: try not to rent from an airport, a rental agency. They charge more, and there's a state rate for daily rate for vehicles for rental car. If you are a line person like line medic, line EMT, safety, strike team leader, division, branch, operations, they'll let you have the 4x4 pickup truck as a rental. It'll say it on your agreements. If you're doing staff check-in recording, demob unit leader, finance, they're probably gonna get you a Yugo or something like that. You're not gonna get the big 4x4 diesel pusher or anything like that. Change, we had a big change in the rental. Used to be you rented the car and you weren't allowed to get fuel at the instant for the rental car. You had to go off site to get the fuel because your reimbursement was all in one big bubble. They changed that. They said that as long as you keep the receipts, you go in, check in, you can go get fuel at the instant fuel. There's a big deal for you. Ever see that where they had the big price thing? When you got fuel, they had little things that how much it cost you for fuel. That was for the rental vehicles that were going through there. They had to pay with credit card, and then they get the receipts and they package it all with a rental card. Turn it. Now they said that's too much of a hassle. It's just included. Don't worry about it. Just get fuel at the instant. That I like that. That's a good change. And then just showing you here, it says 4x4 rental, agency owned vehicle authorized. So you can either use agency vehicle or rental if you don't have one. I think most departments, you guys are pretty much have a vehicle set aside, or do you guys use rentals still? Use rentals? A lot easier. The one thing I can talk about is that if you get a new vehicle, like let's say you buy a pickup truck, a Suburban, make sure you put that vehicle in the system, IROC. And that's usually your Verdugo dispatch will do that. Because if we do a crew swap, which I'll talk about a little bit, if you do a crew swap and that vehicle is not in the system, you won't get reimbursed for the vehicle. So you have to make sure all your engines, your trucks, all your vehicles. We did this about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a big, huge project, but every engine, truck, water tender, Suburbans, staff vehicles, we made sure that all those were in IROC so that it was covered. All your USAR toys, Swiftwater stuff, ATVs, all that stuff needs to be in the system because it won't get reimbursed if it's not in there. So it's a good idea to, as you get something new, make sure it's in the system. As you get rid of something, make sure it's taken out of the system. For enterprise rental, Lisa is our main contact. So I would have that information if you don't, because Lisa, if you're out and you're having problems with rental, you're having problems getting a rental, she's very accessible. I just give Lisa a call and she can try to help you out. Julie is more of the account person. That's for billing and reimbursement. So if you have problems with your rental car bill and stuff, she's the person that handles that. Okay, this is another one that's always a fun one. Okay, so remember the way the CFA is written is that when you leave home quarters and you're traveling from home to the incident, your meals, fuel, damage to equipment, like a flat tire, lodging, that's all on you. Going to the incident. Coming back from the incident, same thing. meals, lodging, fuel, damage, that's all on you. But this is what I always like to, I live on the buts. But it doesn't mean you can't ask, because what's the worst that's gonna happen? You say no. Because it's really an agreement that says no. But let's say you're at incident A, which is, let's say you're in Bakersfield, and you're getting demobed off that, and they have a reassignment, you have time on your 14-day clock, and they're gonna send you to Eureka, up in the northern part of the state, on a fire. And when you get demob, it's like 3, 4 in the afternoon. It's gonna take you 6, 8 hours to get up there. You have to get fuel, stop for food. Technically, the travel from incident A to incident B is on you. Fuel, lodging, meals. Doesn't mean you can't ask to get it covered. Incident A is not gonna cover it. They're not gonna pay for you to take a trip to Northern California. Incident B is who you want to find out. Hey, on the, right, this spot right here, right there, that is the information about the incident that you may need to use. If you look here, it talks about phone numbers, overhead, equipment, 24-hour emergency. So if you're traveling to incident B and you realize, food I wouldn't worry about. They're not gonna cover your food. Because everybody's got probably a box full of all the leftovers from all the 5-pound lunches. And you're probably gonna get a lunch on your way out the door, so I wouldn't worry about the meals. Fuel is dicey, but if you say, we're gonna have to stop and rest, because it's gonna be late by the time we get into town. So what I do is I call where it says equipment. That's me. If I'm overhead, if I'm a safety officer, I'm gonna call the overhead number and I'm gonna talk to the incident and say, this is so-and-so, strike team 1103. I'm en route to your incident. I'm just leaving incident A. I'm not gonna get there till about midnight. I wanna request an ROM, rest overnight. And I like to get it, just figure out an area where it'd be reasonable that once you get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, you can, within an hour, get to base. Because they're gonna want you at briefing at 6 or 7, depending on Cal Fire, because you're gonna go on the line that morning. If you've been traveling all night, it's gonna be real difficult for them to put you on the line if you say, hey, we've been traveling all night, we're beat. So probably 7 out of 10 times, they'll probably say, yeah, let's go ahead and we'll cover it. And what they'll do is they'll make a note on your resource order that says it's approved. They'll add it in there. And then you go ahead and take care of it, receipts and everything. When you check in, you double check to make sure we're good to go, right? I stay in a hotel. But it doesn't hurt to ask, is what I'm saying. But I don't want to hear, well, Chief Stone said, wait a second. So to and from is on you, damage, things like that. Remember that if you're on your way back home and you come across a traffic accident, come across like a grass fire on the 5 freeway, obviously you're going to stop and render aid. And so that could change your clock on how long it takes to get home. If that happens, make sure you call the assistant chief, the OES assistant chief, where you just came from. Let them know, hey, we got stopped. We came across traffic accident. We rendered aid. The local agency came in. We helped them out. Or we had a grass fire. Or if you have a vehicle that goes out of service, you're driving, also the vehicle goes down. You're probably the strike team is probably going to stay with the vehicle, and the other 4 engines just keep on traveling home. And then you're gonna have to deal with getting a mechanic, maybe having to flat bed it. It's on you, but you can still call back and we try to arrange some things. If it's an OES engine that has a problem, definitely gotta give us a call. On the credit card, fuel credit card for that, on the back, there's the 800 number. It's for a tow service. So if you need to get a tow, we'll probably tow it to one of our vendor yards for repair. Depending where you're at, and we'll take care of that. And we'll probably send in one of our ACs that's near there to come to your location also. And like I said, if you have an OES engine, use our fuel card on emergency responses. Don't use yours. I know they look a lot alike. Make sure you use our card. If it's daily stuff around here, you know, you got an engineer's exam coming up and you want everybody to practice. If you have to put fuel in it, that's on you to put the fuel in it. That's not on us. If it's a emergency or if it's a wildland drill, spring drill, things like that, we cover that. But if it's just your day-to-day, let's say you put in service for a few hours because your regular engine goes down, you don't have a reserve, you want to put ours in service, that's fine. But you're responsible for the fuel for that. Lodging rate, it gives you an example of 151 a day. Remember, it's the rate. It's not the taxes that are added, the bed tax, the fee, tourist taxes, all that. That's separate. We're still covered, but it's not considered the lodging rate. If you're not sure what the rate is where you're at, you go to gsa.gov, you type in gsa.gov, and if you go into where it talks about state, county, you can type in the county and state, and it gives you what the GSA rate is for hotel for that county. And that's what we're reimbursing. That's the rate we reimburse. If it's above that amount, you eat that cost. All the tourist fees, all that, we cover that. That's covered in that. Meals. What they mean by the reimbursement ceiling of 150, if the rate's at 150, the 150% might be all the tax. If you're in San Francisco, if you ever stayed there, there's a lot of taxes that they add on top of your lodging rate. So we'll cover up to a certain amount of that, which you usually cover. 150% is going to cover it. Then your meals, that's a GSA rate for meals. And so that's, if you're looking for reimbursement, like I said, you're going to eat breakfast at the incident before you come home. They're handing you a sack lunch. So, meals, I always say, don't worry about the meals. Keep traveling up, same thing. Unless you get to the incident, it's late, everything's kind of spooling up still. They don't have fuel yet. They don't have feeding yet. And so the IC, or maybe it's the check-in people say, hey, you know something, we don't have the fuel truck here yet. We don't have, we're not gonna have food till breakfast tomorrow. So can you go ahead and get your own fuel, feed your crew? But before you leave, what do you want to get signed by them? The 213, right? General message 213. Carry a bunch of those with you, because if they're saying get your own fuel, okay, great. Fill it out, have them sign it, and then make sure you have the receipts. The key there is that the signature can only be the incident commander and the finance section chief. It can't be the check-in recorder, can't be the demo person. It has to be, there's actually a third person. It's a business advisor, but you're not going to see that person until it's been going for weeks. They come out to look at the books, make sure your costs are commensurate with the incident size. But usually it's the IC or the finance. And generally when the thing's pulling up, it's usually the IC. And I know as the OES guy, if I get there early in the incident, my first 213 is my order. Requesting me to be at this incident, I need an O number. And IC signs it, give it to the logs, or I call the dispatch and I take a picture and send it to the dispatch so they can create an order for me. So when you get there, if you start asking for stuff, they don't have it, get a 213, say, well, you cover it and it'll take care of it. Because if they don't, we got to chase that stuff later. And it's hard later. Remember, how many guys are not paramedics? Because everybody's a paramedic. What's the key thing on paramedic documentation? It didn't happen if you didn't document, right? So same thing with this. If it's not documented, because in a heated battle, 4 or 5 days later, the IC says, I don't remember that. Because they don't, because there's so much going on. They don't remember a strike leader come up and, hey, fuel, yeah, you got it. You go, I don't remember that. So it's better to have it written. You give them a copy, you keep a copy. They'll put it in this little folder and you're good. What we've done is we created these general message job aids for you. On that QR code at the end, it's going to have this. You guys want to take a break right now, or you want to keep going? I'll be done. I think you want me to finish, then we'll take a break because I know Josh is got some stuff. So I got about maybe half an hour. Is that good? I don't have a problem if you have to get up and use the restroom, or stretch, walk back and forth, whatever. Just don't stand next to me. It makes me nervous. So we created these forms to help you. This one's for lodging, meals, and for fuel. So you just have this, make a couple copies of it. It's ready to go. You can actually fill it out, write your remarks on it, have the IC sign that, and you just check what applies. Or if you don't have one of these, you just get a regular blank general message. Like I said, documentation is very important. You got, everything, get everything you can in writing. They'll hold you to it. If it's not documented, we can't reimburse you. So all this talks about is make sure you have a general message form signed by the IC or the finance. Make sure you keep your receipts. When we do the MARS, you remember to upload your receipts into MARS. You open the MARS. We create an incident for you. You go in there. You start filling out information. Start plugging in your receipts. Because I know how it is. You're on an incident for 2 weeks. The cab of your engine, unless you got an OCD engineer, it's probably not going to be the cleanest cab. There's going to be paper everywhere, forms, stuff. And unless you are really good about packaging stuff and keeping it separate, it's better we gave you a tool to use that MARS to upload all your receipts. So at least you capture that. You may have some hair on fire engineer decide he's going to clean the cab one morning and every piece of paper goes out, it gets thrown away. And then you're like, hey, that meal receipt, that fuel receipt. Guy goes, oh yeah, that's all dirt. I got rid of it. So it's better to do that. And then what I always tell you guys, when you do a crew rotation, take all your stuff with you. Take all your receipts with you because it documents the time you were there. The new person replacing you, they're going to get their time. Take all yours because stuff gets lost. Get the incident. Make sure you check in with the incident first. They come find us. That's one of our vehicles there. We have each region has a support vehicle. And then if you're a trainee, whether it's an overhead position trainee or you're a STEM trainee, make sure you go see the training specialist. Check in with them. They're going to put you in the system. They're going to put you down that you're a trainee. The key thing I always remind everybody is remember that when it's time to demob, you have to go see the training specialist. Try to go maybe the day before, because when you're trying to get, I know how people are. You love to be there, but when it's time to go home, we want to get on the road and get out of there. And you don't want to look at the training specialist in a line of 40 people waiting in line, and you're like, oh boy, we're going to be here for a while. And really, when you think about it, if you're a trainee, how much more information is going to be gathered that's from today to tomorrow? Especially if you come off the line today, you're off for 24, then you're getting demob. That 24 off, you have plenty of time to go by and see a training specialist. So we're your agency rep. Like I said, I usually talk to the IC. If there's a liaison there, we deal with the liaison, but I usually talk to the IC. I talk to finance because I want to find out what their rules of the road are for finance. And then I'll usually talk to comp claims. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I'll talk to comp claims to find out, okay, if we have a damage to apparatus, damaged equipment, what would you like us to do? How would you like us to handle that? Kind of put the ball in their court so kind of open the door. If you've been, who's on the management team? Anybody here on the management team? They got a few people. You get to know the people pretty well, don't you? After a while, you know their idiosyncrasies. Same thing with us. We work with all the different management teams, the Fed and this CAL FIRE. And you get to know the different people and how they are. And so you can kind of gauge, okay, this is going to work, or hey, I do this, or you maybe have to spend a little more time talking to that person, get a cup of coffee, walk over, sit with them, make sure you lay a good groundwork for them. What they don't want is you to just walk into their trailer or their building and just say, hey, I got a problem. You need to fix my problem. Because the first thing they're going to ask you, did you talk to your OES rep yet? And if it's no, well, they're going to say, we're going to talk to your OES rep first. And that's kind of how we try to do business. We'll work with you, and then we'll help you with claims or damages, things like that. Sleeping accommodations. These two phrases are in the agreement, and the first one's when practical. Okay, so when practical and feasible. So if you get to the incident at, let's say, 9 o'clock at night, and they say, okay, great, you're here, check in. We're going to need you 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, so go find a place to bed down. And the sleep trailers aren't going to be there tomorrow, tents aren't going to be there tomorrow. Hey, but we got a community center multi-purpose room over here you can go into. That's feasible. That's practical. So you probably aren't going to look at hotels or anything. Maybe if they CAL FIRE the hotels, it'll be the next night. Usually not the first night. So you have to think about what's reasonable. And then if you're only 6 hours, you got to be up and at a briefing. Sometimes it's easier to just get the cot and the sleeping bag and go. You know, if it's an air-conditioned community center, go there and sack out for a few hours. Or if there's nice grass area, that's always nice too. Bring a lot of off. If you're in Northern California, bring your off. But just so you know, it's not that they're not going to try to accommodate you. It's just at the beginning it's hard to, because it's like the traveling circus coming to town. It takes a while for it to get there. Once it's there, it's like, whoa, where's the city come from? And then what's feasible? You know, you have to be reasonable with the IC, because you're finding out, okay, what can we do? Some people say, hey, I got to do hotels. That's who I am. You know, I got to have a hotel. So they may say, well, that's available. If you want a hotel, you're on your own. So if you're willing to pay out of pocket, and they say, hey, we're doing hotels, but won't be till tomorrow night. We won't start that. So.
Chief, can I ask a question?
Sure.
If you're approved for lodging, is the state covering Airbnbs or VRBOs?
Say it again.
Like Airbnbs or they?
No, Airbnb, they won't cover those. Yeah, I think that's in the CFA now. Because there's issues with the Airbnbs that they had. Because it had to do with liability. Because, you know, if there's any damage. I don't know, there's some issues with it, and I think some of the Airbnb people were trying to add fees and things onto the cost. And so I think I don't know if I think the CFA does address it, but I know they don't want to do the Airbnb. Now, if you're doing it on your own, that's different. But the big thing there, if you're doing your own thing for hoteling and stuff, is make sure they know where you're at and that you're ready to go, because if the fire breaks out, jumps the line, they may be calling you and say, hey, we need to put you in service and get you back on the line. So it's just the key there is let people know where you're at, but they won't reimburse those. At least they've been saying no. I think it just had issues or something with them. This one, the second bullet, is a big deal for us. Don't split your strike team up. And that is a couple things you think about. If 3 engines say, yeah, we want to get hotels, and 2 engines, because they're agencies, they say, we don't want to, you're not getting hotels. You got to stay together. You're doing sleep trailers or whatever. We don't want to split you up. The other thing is, when you're on your 24 off, the same thing. Don't start you know, hey, we're gonna go over here and go for a guided tour of the whale watching boat or something. Remember, we want to keep you, you're on Portal, you're getting paid. We need you to stay together. We have one where, I don't know, one of the strike teams, the engine guys, they got a Uber and went into town. And then we went looking for the strike team because we need them on the line. And the strike team didn't even know they did that. The engine's sitting in the parking lot of the hotel, but he's like, where's my guys? He's calling them. They find out that they Ubered into town. They left the engine there and they just said, let's go into town, because they heard the clam chowder was good or something, someplace. So that just comes back to responsibility. Don't split up, stay together. If you guys all want to check out the Champ Ladder, you all 5 engines go together. If you have issues, I guarantee you, if there's an issue, they're coming to the OES rep. They're going to come talk to us first. That's just the way they work. They're going to talk to us. It's always a situation, shouts, watch out when you're sitting in your support unit and the door opens up and it's the IC. Because they don't usually come visit you. So the IC's there, you're like, oh, what happened now? So it's probably not, hey, you're doing a great job, Tom. Hotel, this is just general knowledge information. To me, it makes sense. The big deal is, obviously don't do drugs, but alcohol, you guys are portal, shouldn't be drinking. I think when I was last week, I was relaying to the class that we had a strike team just years ago, probationary firefighter. For whatever reason, he had his own hotel room. He ends up drinking a beer, leaving the empty in the trash at the hotel in his room. And when you vacate to go on the line, they clean the rooms and then they get them ready for the guys coming off the line because they're using the same rooms. Housekeeping found the empty container, goes over to motel incident, shows them, hey, this was in this room. They look at the sheet because you got to fill out who's in what room, and then you sign in blue pen for yourself that you're there. So they see it's, Joe Dokes in room whatever. So of course, they call us first. Hey, we got a problem with one of your strike teams. Okay, what's going on? Well, and strike team leader comes over, sit with the IC, and he said, hey, we found this in this room. It was this guy in this room. And the guy said, yeah, I didn't think any of it. I just drank a beer. So, of course, they demoted the strike team. They're gone. And what happened when they got home? They call home first. We're calling dad, And so the probationary firefighter lost their job because they were drinking on duty, probation. I said it had to be a fireman because if it was an engineer, they would have put the empty in somebody else's trash. I'm thinking, what are you thinking about? I always tell people, if you can't go a couple of weeks without having some type of alcoholic beverage,
Let's start there.
you're making good money. Why would you waste it all on that? Yeah, that's a good starting point, right? And this is what I like. Telephone calls. How many people don't have a cell phone? Why would you use the phone in the room? Room service. Yep. And then pay-per-view TV. Most people have their smart device. They got their own entertainment in front of them. So more than likely you're not watching that. Rotation of personnel. The system says in the CFA that anything less than 7 days is on your agency. So if you have a sick individual, family emergency, rig breaks down, if it's less than 7 days, the incident doesn't want to get involved. That's between you and, well, of course, OES, but it's you and your home agency to make that work. So if we have a family emergency, of course, we're going to get a person home as soon as we can, but you're going to have to replace them. And the cost of replace them, the vehicle, the time, that's on your agency. It's just not going to cover it. Once you hit the 7 day mark, then the incident's going to cover that. Same thing though, 213, so-and-so had to go home, family emergency, we replace them with this person. here's the vehicle we're using to replace them. And then the IC will sign that, and then they'll put that in the system as basically it's like a rotation of personnel. Generally speaking, we're out there for 14 days. So if you don't have a family emergency, 14 days, about 2 to 3 days before we start to have you rotate, the OES rep will go to the IC and we'll sit with them and say, okay, what's your plan for these resources? I have 10 strike teams. They all came out the same day. I got 10 rotations I got to do, and I got to do it in 3 days. We got to start, let the agencies know you want to rotate, dispatch centers, all this stuff needs behind the scenes. What do you want to do? And the IC may say, we got to handle this. I'm going to get rid of 5 of them, and I'll do rotation for 5. And then we can figure out which 5 you want to hang on to. Usually the type 1s will go home first. Type 3s, they'll keep those. Or you may say, I need all 10 of them. Because they may be in a place where if they lose any resources, they may not get any back. So they'd rather do the rotation. So we have a job aid that's already pre-set up for crew rotation job aid. We have you guys fill it out. It basically is who's replacing whom, and then what vehicle you're using to get the people from home to the incident, and the same vehicles get home, back to home. The vehicles are covered for that time period, and both sides are covered for that time period. So it's a separate, we used to do paper 42s, now it's in Mars. It's a separate entry, you go in there, you fill it out, and it's a whole separate lane on the highway, basically. So
What's switching a vehicle look like? I know that I was going to try team one where someone did that and it caused all kinds of issues, but I don't know. Like, crew stayed the same, everything stayed the same, just one vehicle, that was an issue. They brought another engine and swapped.
Was it the engine they swapped out? It shouldn't be a problem, because you have to just make the change. You have to put it in the 213, you're changing those vehicles. And then the dispatchers, all they do is they show this vehicle, out of the system on this date and time, and this vehicle starts at this date and time. So it's just coordinating to make sure that you're not double paying for the engine. Because what they'll do is they'll stop the pay. Because you decide to bring the engine up. Unless it's pre-approved, if you're pre-approved, they're good. But if they don't, you just bring the engine up, the engine goes home, and it's just more of a dispatcher issue for the engine.
It was more to avoid getting sent home. I think that the agency set up right up.
Was it a different agency that swapped?
No,
Same agency, just different engine? Yeah, it's just a paperwork thing in IROC. Shouldn't be an issue. Because a lot of times that happens, you want to change out the engine, maybe that one needs a maintenance or something, or it was the wrong engine that got sent out, and the labor group said, hey, that's supposed to have been engine 3. Like you said, we had that problem with, I'll talk about that, out-of-state resources. We only send OES engines out of state. We don't send local government out of state. And we had a strike team that went to New Mexico a couple of years ago, and Type 3s. And Anaheim has one of our OES Type 3s. It was out of service. They didn't think, they didn't ask. They just put their Type 3 OES in, the Anaheim engine. I shouldn't have said names of agencies. Anyway, some agency down there. But they said their engine, well, when the OES rep was following them, when he got to the first place they stopped, he was able to catch up. He's like, why is that engine here? Well, ours was out, sorry, we just added this. And they said, no, you can't do that. So they got another engine to come out, sent that engine home. It's the liability. We don't want to be liable for that engine if something happens to it. That could be pretty expensive. So we send OES. Our engines are a little less expensive. And, all we do, well, we raise the fuel price a penny a gallon. And we can cover that engine easily. It's going up 2.4 cents starting July 1, right? Automatic. You have something? The tax on the gas for state. It's automatically goes up every year based on CPI. This year goes up 2.4 cents a gallon. So it'll be 63 point something cents a gallon. So those roads are looking good, aren't they? Everything coordinated with your dispatch center, your home agency, us, the incident dispatch center to make sure it happens. We try to get 2 days minimum just to make sure everything's clean. It says here, yeah, 48 hours. We have that crew rotation for 213, which is really, the job aid's really nice. And then we'll do a Mars entry that's separate. This is basically, this just tells you how to do the process. So if you come to us, we're going to do a crew rotation. We can hand you this form. It gives you step by step. It's mostly for your dispatchers, so they know how to do it. Put the vehicles in the system, do the transfer, all that stuff. It talks about what's required in 213 and then rotation stuff. Then on the Mars, there's an actual rotation screen in Mars. I don't know if you guys play with that at all. Yeah, pretty easy, pretty user friendly. Yeah, I think I'm really happy. Well, you know, the paper's not bad, but it can get confusing trying to do the papers. But this is a lot easier. The thing I like about Mars is that your home agency can look at this and they can see what you're doing. They can see what documents have been there. You can talk to home agency, finance, whatever. Our people can look at it. We have permissions to I can look at your stuff if we have to. I try not to, I'm not that curious where I'm going to start looking at everybody's stuff. If there's a problem, you come to me, I can open up and look to see what it looks like. But I don't have time in my life to be eavesdropping everybody else's stuff. All this reminds you of is that, you can use a bus to do a crew rotation for a strike team, but it has to be pre-approved by the incident. You can't just arbitrarily just rent a bus. And this goes back to LA City, I'm going to say that. Agency over there. They got a bus, which I don't have a problem with a bus. I think it's a great idea because you could put like 3 strike teams on a bus. So they sent a bus to an incident. 3 strike teams on it. They didn't get pre-approval. The bus was $9,000 to rent the bus. The incident, you know, we're talking about Fed people. They like flipped out. $9,000 for a bus. What is that, a party bus? You know, and they were just like flipping out. So that got added to the CFA saying that if you're going to charter a bus, it has to be pre-approved, which means you have to have the estimate a cost of what the cost of the bus. Provide that with the crew rotation request, 213, so that the incident can look at it as, okay, yeah, it's 4,000 for a bus. That's what's the good thing City did, though. They hit that 9,000 mark. So what's that everybody think? Well, 5,000 is pretty reasonable, right? I don't know what it costs to rent a bus, but you're getting 2 drivers, a bus. I like it because we can have you on the line working, come off the line, shower, eat, get on the bus and start heading for home. We don't have to have the 6-hour minimum downtime before we can send you on the bus. If you're driving your own vehicle or driving agency vehicles, the Suburbans, the pickup trucks. So I think it's probably better for rest because then you just sleep all the way home. That's a crew rotation 42. That's on the QR code. Damage to equipment and apparatus, that's always a fun one. Top claims, like I mentioned earlier, just come to us. There's a system. It's like, okay, let's say you're Glendale and your engine, is this 21? Is that what they call it here? 21? Okay, so 21 turns the corner and a car hits it. What's your process? Do they just go back to station and don't say anything? Isn't there a process you have to go through for each chief officer? Know that, right? You have to get the cops out there for a police report. You have to probably get your yard out there to check to make sure it's roadworthy. Make sure the EMS issue, no one's hurt. There's all these things. Notification to whoever needs to be notified, the on-duty chief. there's all these notifications. Maybe you guys probably have a safety officer for your department. They may come out to check it out, look at it, see what was the reason, safety reports. Doesn't change from here to there. Same thing. Safety officer making sure that, hey, this may not be the only engine that's had this problem. Maybe there's other people having this problem. Maybe we need to adjust how we do business. Usually it has to do with the ground support, picking the route of travel from the base to the incident. Sometimes they may have maybe overhang trees, things, boulders on the sides of the road, maybe a narrow area, and then you get some damage. And then they start saying, we had like 3 inches get that damage. Maybe we need to relook at this. So safety officer gets involved. Make sure your division or group supervisor is involved and notified. They're going to do a 213 that says you were there. Because comp claims will say, well, how do I know that damage happened? They're insurance adjusters, right? How do I know that happened on the incident? How do I know it didn't happen when you guys were running around town? Well, because I have this 213 from division supervisor that says I was there, date, time, location. I got photos of what happened. I always call placing you at the scene of the crime. Because if you can't place you there, then the cop said, well, how do I know you were there? Well, because this person says I was there. The IAP says I'm supposed to be there. I got photos of the area where I was working. Be careful because they try to find ways not to have to pay the claim. So I don't want to be negative, but if you find the damage, get back to base, and realize, I wonder where that bump was. We hit a rocket, damaged some of the chrome stripping and all that. And we got to get that taken care of. You go back to the area to take photos. Well, it might be daytime, and the incident happened at night. And so make sure you explain that I had to go back later and take pictures because we didn't see the damage until we got back to base when we were doing our annual or our daily inspection of the rig. Because they'll say, well, because you might say nighttime, it's smoky, the fire's along the road, and the person looking at the picture goes, well, I don't see any fire, I don't see any smoke. Looks pretty, why would you hit that? It looks like you can see that to me, so it's better if you can't get pictures right away, but if not, go back, take them. You need to get an estimate of the repair cost from the ground support. So you gotta go to ground support. Be careful because paint is not cheap and most of those ground support guys are not painters. And so they'll look at, like, you got some scorched paint because somebody was doing a firing operation and it jumped the line and scorched the side of your rig. And they go, $2,000 to cover that. And you're thinking, that won't even do the sanding, So you may have to call home, talk to one of your folks in your shop and say, hey, here, take a picture. Here's what I got. What do you think? Oh, that's going to be 10 grand. The problem is there's a ceiling on how much they'll cover on an incident. You can't get approval to go above the ceiling, but there's a ceiling on that. It took about 2 years. We had 3 engines from Santa Clara County got scorched on a firing operation. Did just that, jumped the road, burned 3 engines. It took 2 years for them to get the reimbursement because they were fighting because of the cost to paint the rigs. Feds thought it was too expensive, but it's expensive to paint rigs. This key point here, I don't like it, but this is because it can be open to interpretation. The loss and damage is determined to be directly attributable to the incident. You're driving on the road, boulder rolls out, hits the rig. As far as I'm concerned, you wouldn't have been there if the incident wasn't there, so it's attributed to the incident. You're driving along the road, there's a low-hanging branch, it's nighttime, and somebody didn't trim the branch and it hits the light bar and damages your light bar. As far as I'm concerned, that's directly attributable to the incident. Some comp claims people say, unless the fire is kissing the side of the rig, I don't think that's directly attributable. It's interpretation, so you have to kind of go that way. My interpretation is, hey, that engine wouldn't have been there unless it was your incident. So what they're doing, they weren't negligent. They were doing just their job and got damaged. So I probably wouldn't be a good insurance guy. Same thing, traveling home, it's on you, wear or tear, you get a flat tire. Remember that you get a daily rate for the engine. You get paid for 16 hours of a 24-hour period. It's about $2,000 a day. So over a 14-day period, it's about $24,000, $26,000 reimbursement for the use of your engine. And that's supposed to pay for the wear, tear, maintenance. You do PM when it gets back. Unfortunately, some cities, the money goes where first? General fund, and then it might work its way back to you. It depends on how your system's designed for your city. The cool thing, I think, is if you're on a CAL FIRE 24 on, 24 off, the 24 off, it's sitting in the parking lot at the hotel or at the base, you're still getting 16 hours paid for that day. So think of it that way. You're actually, so if you have something break, $100 part, what I like is ground support. If you have a part break and you, so let's say it's $100, they'll put it in for you. You just got to buy the part. So you call home and say, hey, we got this widget that's broken and it's going to cost $100. And they'll put it in for free. Well, yeah, go ahead and do it. And the mechanics at the instance are not just fly by night. They're mechanics for the feds, CAL FIRE. I think, did Glendale, we sent one of your mechanics to one of our fires one time? I think, yeah. So they're regular mechanics. They're diesel mechanics. They're not just somebody that hired off the corner. So I know LA County's brought their city. If they need mechanics, they'll bring them out there to do work. We have 6 OES mechanics. And so we'll send at least 2 to a big incident so they can work on our stuff. And they'll help the regular mechanics. But then if our stuff comes in, we have them there to work on our stuff. This just goes into the whole thing about costs and stuff. And then we have same thing, we have a check. If you come to us and say, hey, I got some damage, we have a checklist of what to do. And I call it a scavenger hunt. Because there's all this stuff you gotta get together. We'll help you with that. You get all the information. We'll help package it. We'll go sit with you with the comp claims and go over the claim. We'll preload the comp claims first, let them know that they have a claim coming. So they're at least ahead of time. So it's not a surprise. Like I said, I like the comp claims people. It's an interesting group. I had a lady, I don't want to tell too many stories, but CAL FIRE, we had a booster hose on one of the engines. It broke. It got some heat on it, but it broke. So we wanted the incident to cover 50 foot of 1-inch red hard booster hose. I don't know what the cost was. It was like $400 or something. And this comp claims lady said, we will not cover that because CAL FIRE, we don't use those real lines. We don't use booster lines in CAL FIRE. So we're not going to cover your booster line because we don't use those. And I said, you don't use these at all? No, none of our engines have those, so we're not going to cover it. And I go, hold that thought. Come walk with me. We walk outside to the Strike Team CAL FIRE engines. I go, what's that called? What's that called? All 5 engines had boosters on top. I go, it says CAL FIRE on it. You just told me not one engine in your agency has them. She goes, damn it. Here's your $400. Go away. But it's one of those things where when someone starts getting adamant, I go, okay, wait a second. There's got to be an exception somewhere. And then don't forget to do your vehicle X report. If you're an OES engine, OES equipment, we require within 2 days to have an accident report film filed with us. You just fill it out, give it to us. We'll fax it to our fleet chief just so it's on file. We have to do the same thing if OES engines are damaged. We have to go through the same process of getting all the information, all that. You're driving, so you help us with that, but we'll do that too. That's our 213 examples. That's the ground support example. If one of your members gets injured, make sure you let everybody know what's going on. That's a big deal. Remember that, I think I have a slide, but workers' comp follows the employee. And when we do a salary survey every year for your agency, we get the hourly rate of all your employee positions, everybody that gets reimbursed. Included in that rate is worker comp, Medicare, Social Security. There's all these costs that are added in. And so if you get hurt or your member gets hurt on the incident will cover the ambulance ride, they'll cover the hospital, ER. That's covered by the incident. Once you get released from the incident, you go home. All that other care and feeding, that's on you guys. Follow-up reports, follow-up doctor, physical therapy, that's all going to be back on, because it's your workers' comp. They'll cover the stuff at the incident, but once you go back, it's on you guys. Reassignment, if you have time left on your 14-day clock, we may get you reassigned to another incident. The key there is make sure your home agency is good with it. So if you have 5 different agencies, so strike team leader says, hey, they want to reassign. We have 4 days left, 5 days left. They want to reassign us. Call home, find out if you're good with it. So usually they're good, they're fine. But there may be one chief says, I want you guys home. And so that's when they get another engine from another agency would come up. But that engine has the same time as what's already there. So just because they come up, 14 doesn't start over for that engine. They just get whatever's with the main group. And then for demob, just remember that that's your time to be at demob. We may try to do some things ahead of time for inspections of vehicles, especially if you're going to be reassigned. We try to get everything done ahead of time. And out of state, that's going to be OES engines, and that's going to be, you have an OES rep there with you. And that I'm not worried about that. All that says is that if your Mars doesn't work out of state for whatever reason, use the paper 42, and then when you get back in state and not Mars, then you can do the Mars. Because you may not get you may have to get a signature, and you may get it on your paper one. They just upload that system. EMAC is just us going to other states and other states coming to us. Generally, you won't be involved in that. Okay, so we're divided into 6 regions. I got one more slide after this. Something pretty good. This just shows you that we're region 1, which is San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, Ventura, LA, and Orange County. And then you can see where region 2 is goes from Monterey all the way to the Oregon border. It's real long, narrow. And 6 goes all the way up into Mono County, which I like. I got the smallest area, but the busiest of the areas. So this is on your QR reader. So it gives you information. You need to get a hold of people. And then, like I said, region 1 south is vacant. North is Jimmy Harris. He came from he was the FMO of the Los Padres. He's been with us for about 3 years, but he's been covering. He's at the LA City, a little problem over there. He's a Fed guy. He's a trees and bushes guy. And so he's like, what's this building? But we've been doing the FIFA soccer games. So we got one this week, and I can't get tickets, sorry, but we've been doing the FIFA stuff. That's what I was supposed to be doing, and I got this stuff, so that's all right. And those are other regions, and then that's the QR code. If you want to flash that, that'll give you a whole bunch of information. And we do update the information annually, so it should be the most recent current stuff. And that's my program. Any questions?
But I'm part of our CCS committee in Area C. I'm also a qualified training specialist. One of the things that we wanted to cover this year was filling out PTBs, position task books, what that looks like, what right looks like, what wrong looks like. So how many trainees are in here? Okay, good. How many trainers? I guarantee you if you're staying, you're going to be doing lots of training, or if pretty much any position you're in now, you could be a trainer. So yeah, so a couple big things. The new CICCS Qualifications Guide 2026 is out. It just got released this month. It'll be going out. I've been trying to find it myself. Not super easy, but it is out. There's a couple of verbiage changes in there. Something that was removed from the 2025 that's been added back into the 2026 is position task book timelines, which always seems to be a big question for everybody. How long do I have to finish this thing? So you have 5 years from initiation. So it's really important, training officers, training chiefs, that when you're giving these books out, you're putting a date on it, please. So 5 years from initiation to get your first ink. By ink, I mean your first assignment. Some evaluators put some ink in there, and then you have 5 more years after that ink goes in to finish that book. So technically, if you don't go out until year 5 and you get your first ink, you just bought yourself 5 more years. All right, so you really have about 10 years potentially. Now, if you get your book initiated and you go out the next week, now you have 5 years really left to finish it. You can get extensions 1 year at a time. Just has to go back to the committee. We'll restamp it for an extension. You get 1 year at a time on the extension. Anybody here in aviation? Okay, if you're in aviation, your task books are only good for 3 years. Same rules apply, 3 and 3. All right.
Question on the extension.
Yes.
If you do an extension, are you now required to fill the requirements of the newly changed curriculum?
Yep. So if you do an extension, let's say for whatever, you have to now meet the new guideline qualifications for that extension.
Even if you have ink in your book under the old qualifications?
Yeah, as far as I know, they're going to make you
So-
open a new.
So I'm just thinking about it out loud, and I could be way off because I don't like coffee, but if I open, let's say I open a STEM trainee book, and on the 5th year I get ink in it, which you just told me advice me 5 more years,
Uh-huh.
I would be better off doing that than going 5 years and asking for a 1 year extension.
Yep.
Because if I get ink in the book, then I'm still subjected to the current task book curriculum,
Yep.
correct?
And good. So you're also subjective to whatever the guideline was at the time you opened. So like if you opened under a 2022 guideline, then technically we're going to hold you to that.
Thank you.
Now you can have a maximum of 3 position task books total. So if you have more than that, you need to cough one up to give it back to your agency. Anybody here working on type 2 stuff? Potentially. So one of the big things that came out of 2025 with the new one last year was they got rid of the type 2 stuff, right? We're going away from type 2. We're going type 3, type 1, even type 1's going away now to CIM, which is complex incident management. But if you have a type 2 task book, say it's a type 2 IC or type 2 safety, whatever, you can complete that task book still, right? You'll have to just get ordered out as probably a type 3, bring your type 2 task book and keep working through it. So they looked back and said, man, this was a mistake dropping this. So we're going to allow folks to finish that type 2 stuff. I know this has been on the docket for like 10 years. CICCS trying to adopt how to historically recognize USAR positions, hazmat positions, because that does need to happen, because all of that is now part of CICCS. It has been for a while. Some of the positions, though, they are deferring until they can get a task book initiated or some type of PTB made. Historical recognition for USAR personnel for Area C is coming very quickly. From what I've been told, speaking to all of our USAR managers, especially RTF4, which is Chief Nasha, they are pretty close to being ready. So each individual agency is going to be putting that in, submitting that. It's basically just going to be a letter. You guys are going to tell us who's where, but there's going to need to be some supporting documentation. So Chief Stone, you had a...
Yeah, the historical recognition for the technical search and rescue would start in June
purpose of this year.
Yeah.
May 31st next year.
Of next year.
Period. We got a year to clean all that up and get in. And then the 2026 CICCS guideline became effective June 8th of this year.
So we're,
Anybody open task will be under that guideline.
yep. So for those of you who are USAR or hazmat, my biggest suggestion to you is as you're doing training, log your folks in a spot that they're gonna like show some type of record of they were in this spot. So if it's hazmat specialist, I don't know, I'm not from the hazmat world. I don't know what kind of positions are in there. I came from the USAR world, so I know like rescue managers, search team managers. If you're doing training and you can produce a training record with a roster of who was in those spots, that's going to significantly help us out to make sure that we're good on that end. So that's coming real quick. Like I said, there's a national transition that's going on to CIM, which is complex incident management, which is broadly equivalent to our CICCS type 1. So at some point you may see type 1 start to sunset as well. So if you're working on some type of type 1 task book, it's probably a pretty good idea if you try to get that wrapped up here pretty quickly. Part of what we're going to cover today, I'm going to spend a little bit of time very briefly, like one slide in STEN. I know this is STEN refresher, but as STENs, as a STEN-T or a STEN, really your job is you're taking care of the engines and stuff, but you're really monitoring engine boss and your STEN-T. So, but we're going to talk a little bit about just filling out the book. As a training specialist, I can't tell you how many times I've seen books come in and I'm like, holy smokes, who in the world taught you how to fill this out? So it seems to be a big point of contention all the time. Most folks, when they come in and see me, they don't even touch the book. They're like, hey, how do I fill this out? So I want to make sure Area C folks are ready to go on this. So if you are STEN or STEN-T, or if you're a STEN-T, this is the book you should still be operating out of. This is the PTB. When I say PTB, I mean Position Task Book. This is from 2013. A lot of these are in the process of getting updated, but this is the book we are currently using. All right. This is for STEC, which is STEN, Strike Team Leader Heavy Equipment, Strike Team Leader Crew, and then TFLD. So if you're working on Task Force Leader, same book. And then obviously STEN Engines. But I'll talk a little bit about Engine Boss because there is some new changes to Engine Boss and Engine Boss T. How many of your departments are issuing Engine Boss task books to your captains or your folks? Okay. If you're not, you should be. If you're sending folks out on a strike team as an engine captain, they have to meet the same standards that everybody else does in CICCS. So this is something that Area C is going to be addressing because I'm hearing that maybe there's some departments that just don't do this for their captains. You have to. So if you don't have an Engine Boss task book or if, and you're being sent out on a strike team, this is an issue. So make sure you get this issued to you. If you have one, you can still be using this older. This is from 2024. This got updated, the Engine Boss, and then they just re-updated it to this new one, which is called the Next Gen task books. It is out for Engine Boss. You can find these on NWCG's website. Also, you'll get my contact info at the end. I have all of these in PDF form that are fillable. So if you want some of this stuff, just shoot me an email. But remember, going through this task book, there's just the hardest one that everybody seems to have trouble getting is supporting a burn operation. So if you look in the task book, that says I, or it can be done RX, so a prescribed burn. So when LA County does spring drills, you can get signed off for that. If you go take CA 219, you can take your book and they will sign you off for that. So all of that counts. So that tends to be the hardest one. And people are like, well, I can never get it. Well, find a training fire, find a training burn and go get them to sign it off. Zach Cates at LA County Fire will do it for you, no problem. So will Kevin Montoya. So try to find that. Remember, every time you go out, there's 3 parts to your evaluation. Okay, there's your task book that needs to be filled out. And we'll go through the Next Gen a little bit because this seems to be a big one. There's an evaluation record, which we'll talk about that. And then there's a 225 or a 226 that has to be filled out as well. So this is what the next gen looks like, a little different. If you're familiar with like this, the older style that had just a lot of boxes, the next gen actually gives you 5 events, 5 times you could go out. And then each of these boxes, you can either have 4 rating types. So NO means no opportunity to perform that task. D means they do not meet the standard, or does not meet the standard. M is meets the standard, and E is exceeds the standard. So if you're filling out any type of a next gen PTB, you're going to put in box 1. This is their first time out. In box 1, you're going to decide what are you giving them? Are you giving them a D? Are you giving them an E? Are you giving them an M? And then your initial goes under it. So if you're given one of these next gens as an engine boss, your name, again, make sure each of these are your individual assignments. So for your first assignment, everything should be in box 1. On your second assignment, everything should be in box 2. Third assignment, box 3 and 4. Right? The book is significantly smaller than the last book, which is good. They took a bunch of stuff out that really did need to be done. Each task has the same task code as before, which defines what type of assignment it is. So you'll see the code is kind of the task code, right? So if it's an O, it means it can be any other. It can be other. So you can do a drill at the station. It doesn't have to be on an incident. If a box has an I, it has to be on an incident. If it has a W, it has to be on a wildfire. So when we talk about incident versus wildfire, like today, we're taking 4 engines down to the Boyd incident. So if any of those captains have an engine boss task book, we can sign some of that stuff off if it has an I. It doesn't necessarily have to be a W. An RX means a prescribed burn, obviously, and then S is a simulation. So if you have captains or if you have folks who are opening up engine boss task books or STEN task books, and there's an S, you can make a simulator. Maybe it's doing a size up, all that stuff. So find those opportunities and get those things signed off. But that's in each of these codes. So just make sure you're understanding what that means. A lot of people don't understand that. Just make sure you do. So the second part, or another part of the 3 parts that you need to have done, is a 225 or a 226. Very generic form, a 225, very generic. I don't like using these as much. I like making 226s because it's very position specific. So I have 226s for just about every position you can find on the fire. And they're all PDF fillable. So if you want one, if you're going out as, let's say you're a FODL, a food distribution unit leader, I have a 226 for you. So if you want it, send me an email and I'll send it to you. And then you can give it to your trainer. All kinds of crazy stuff. GSLs, status check-ins, I got it. So just email me. But there's a good way to do this and there's a really bad way to do this. And I see it all the time. So when we talk about good, you'll see Chief Nasha went to the Dinky fire. I was his raider, just an example. But he met most of the stuff. This is a nice clean form. And then it's got a full write-up in here, which you'll see. Right? This is the type of remarks we want to see. And I'll show you what not so good looks like here in a minute. Captain Nasha was assigned to Strike Team 1203 Alpha under my supervision as an engine boss trainee for the Dinky fire. Captain Nasha showed up well prepared and with a positive attitude. He led his engine crew through a couple of rough operational periods and made and showed some good decision-making abilities during some stressful moments of structure protection. When assigned to complete a 2,500-foot progressive hose leg, his crew completed the assignment as he sat down in the engine, finishing up his 214s. His management of 214s is lacking and needs improvement. He was not prepared to log into Mars during demob, which caused some delay and not able to produce a red card when asked. Both items had to be called home to complete. However, Captain Nasha was an asset during most of the deployment, but needs to work on his administrative side. Okay, very to the point, right? Would benefit from additional strike teams. Give some good feedback. It's okay to document bad things. You want to give that feedback to your trainee, right? Versus this kind of form. This is what we see a lot of. Hand filled out sometimes, no offense, some of y'all have really bad handwriting, so we can't even read some of it. And then you get a write-up like this. Danny did a good job, and I enjoyed working with him. He led our only long Jose and did good. I look forward to working with him again. See these all the time, right? This doesn't provide the trainee any feedback. Once it comes back to committee, it doesn't provide the committee any feedback. We're reading everything that's coming when we, that you're sending us when we go to final qualification. And this kind of stuff right here is no bueno. So if you get something from this from your trainer, hand them a new blank one and say, can you please put more on there for me? So the third part of this is the position evaluation record. So you'll have the 226, right? This individual ICS form. And then the next part is your evaluation record. You'll find this in the back of every task book. This also has to be filled out. This one's pretty simple. As a trainee, you should be able to fill out all the top portion and then hand it to your trainer. You only have 3 choices here. All right. You have a 1, a 2, or a 3. A 3 is if your trainer or if your trainee sucked. If they did not do well, they did not perform well, you give them a 3. A 2 is, hey, they performed well, but you're not ready to do final sign off. So lots of times we get forms in and somebody's like, oh, the guy did great. She did great. I'm giving her a 1. And you're like, well, are you signing her off? No, she just did a really good job. Change it to a 2 because 1 is final sign off. So make sure you're checking box 2 if you're not ready to give them a final sign off. But if you're ready, if they're good to go, if they did a great job, you want to sign them off, then you check the 1. Okay. Remember, for a quality assignment, for an assignment to be considered a quality assignment, 65% or more of the task book has to be filled out. So if you go down to an incident and you're there for a day or 2 and you only get like 30% of your task book signed off, not a quality assignment, it's not going to count towards the end, right? Still do all the paperwork, but it's not going to be a good quality. So a good quality assignment is 65% or more of the task book. So just make sure as a trainer or a trainee that if they're signing you off, it's your 3rd or 4th time out and they're signing you off, you're getting a 1. All right. And then Chief Stone kind of talked about it a little bit. It is really important when you go out on these incidents, please, please, please find your training specialist, check in with them. I put a QR code on all the IEP covers. I have a QR code outside my trailer. The door is open all the time. It is super important to you to check in because you get a really nice finished training package at the end that you get emailed, that I email to you, your training chief, and your trainer. And it's just really nice when you go to committee, you have all this stuff. So super important to go check in. Plus, part of my job as a training specialist is to find you opportunities. So when you scan a QR code for any training specialist, they're gonna ask you like, how much of your task book have you done, and what is it that you need? So I can't tell you how many times I've been able to go to like an operations chief and say, hey, are you guys doing any burning tomorrow? When they're setting up the next day's kind of schedule or plan. And they're like, yeah, we're actually burning over in these 4 divisions. Great. I've got like 6 engine boss trainees or stentees that need to get the training burn or need to get a burn up. And they're like, cool, let's figure it out. So we are your advocate. I will go find you opportunities to get stuff done. So check in with that training specialist. A good training specialist is going to create those opportunities for you. So just make sure you check in with them and then make sure you check out. I think on the Gifford last year, I had 250, 260 trainees. I think I ended up checking out like 200 of them. So there's 50 people who went home with nothing. Right? So make sure you check out. Yes, it's tedious. You could do it the day before you're leaving. You could do it. I wouldn't wait, like Chief Stone said, till there's a line out the door. But you can do a lot of it online. So but just make sure you take those moments, find that person, find that TNSP, and get a hold of them and just create the communication that we're going to find you opportunities. Here's my information. There's my cell phone and my email. If you want any of the forms, any of the 226s, 225s, If you have any questions while you're out there, shoot me a phone call, shoot me an email, and I can get them to you. That's all I got, Chief Murphy. Any questions on CICCS, task books, any of this stuff? Awesome.
All right, last couple, just close out things. With the new CAD, one of the things was brought during break is the single resource people being paged out, let them know that they're polling or they're trying to fill a single resource spot. So I'll follow up with Jason Garrett on that. The new CAD, we started from the chief officers, working our way down. So we'll prioritize the line medics over regular personnel. So you guys get punched out on the single resource stuff. We're still gonna be doing the pre-positions. We did some pretty heavy for the mud and debris flows. Obviously, we'll do them for the potentially dangerous situations that Robert Monroe was talking about. And then last thing is if you're a STEN, we send out the morning report at 9 in the morning. So you know who is assigned to you for a strike team. Maybe beneficial to contact those engines and just set a little bit of expectation for them. Last year we had an immediate need strike team go out. In 45 minutes, one of the engines is still in the backyard changing out sleeping bags and stuff. So, when we need an immediate need, we'd like them to get here to help us out. So vice versa. Plus that also doesn't help wherever you're gonna try and meet up if you're still waiting for that rig that's here changing out people and equipment, stuff like that. So, and if the incident calls us, the strike team leader calls us and says, hey, where's this other engine? And we look on the map and all we could say is, well, they're still here. So kind of get your immediate need a little faster. So any other questions on anything? Everybody signed in to make sure you get your credit? Okay, we'll send the copy of the roster to all the agencies to make sure you guys get checked off. So thanks for coming. Sorry we went over just a little bit. Have a good week.
So cheap rate, I do have one.
All right.
It's probably not from the whole group, but. It's like,
You go out. They don't care about the rank.
yeah, training.
If it's blank, we don't have one.
Right.
Fill it out. So I'm not. So it's all done the same thing. We reached out and like, hey, we are sending a tree. That's almost.
All right. Try and get some meetings.
There you go.
Thanks.
All right. Hey, Gano.
Yeah. Is what it is.
Operator error upstairs. Not a CAD thing, not a first due thing. There were 2 calls on elk. She attached the battalion chief to the wrong elk call.
Oh, for right now?
Yeah.
I think we've met Scott Moore.
You got it?
That's the job.
All right, so when that email comes, just, you can either forward it to me or just let me know.
It was an issue with the filtering. Somebody went in and undid the filtering. So they cleaned it all. I don't know.
There you go.
I don't know if somebody went in and messed with it or if it was the first you push that update. I don't know, but it's good.
I thought that all calls and filtering only the battalion chief?
Yeah, all dispatches was turned on. So.
Well, I mean, we can, until there's a way they give permissions for the settings.
Yeah.
Because it's an app, they don't have a permission setting.
Yeah.
Right, so if you have the app, you say your own permissions. You know,
It
you
is.
just have to rely on people not to touch it. We had Engine 25 change their icon. They were driving around with their patch, their station patch and the identifier. So you see this thing driving around. What the hell's that? Look on, it's Engine 25. They switched it. It is, if you do what they're pitched, if you can zoom in, but, you know. That's all right.
Hey, if I have, the authenticator I have for Glendale IT, I had set the account up originally,
Yeah.
on my other phone.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
And then,
Yeah, thanks.
see you later.
I'll see you Friday.
Friday at the training center.
Okay, great.
Cool, thanks again.
If I'm still out.
We'll send the side side.
So I got the new phone
Yeah.
and now Glendale's not on there. So who's a point of contact that can reach out or you can just text you? Because now when it pops up, it has to call me as opposed to just sending me the code.
Numbers.
Yeah.
Do you know that Fresh Service, the,
I don't, but I just got
I'll
pinged
email-
on it.
I'll email you the help ticket,
Okay,
the Glendale IT help ticket.
okay.
And they, because they should be the ones that should.
Josh, you don't leave.
Clear that cache,
Okay,
you know, so that it doesn't, so you can redo it,
redo it. Yeah, okay.
so it identifies a different phone.
I mean, it just calls me. It's fine, but it's nice not,
It's nice to just have a number to put in.
yeah, just have the number. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
All right, catch you later.
thanks.
I will let you keep this coffee cake upset.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
You want to take it up?
I could take it up there, unless you want to go say hi, it's up to you.
No, I'm good.
Okay,
How long?
I'll just drop